Thanks for joining me today. If you have found yourself here within the Felt Hub, then this is probably what you're interested in making. This is a time-lapse tutorial, but you can felt alongside me in real time to the full video tutorial. So if you just pop into the Felt Hub and look for the playlist for the Hare, you will find me there, and also make sure you subscribe so that you get automatic updates. What we're really focusing on is getting this really perfect shape, beautifully shaped legs, really nice and firm, no wire in these whatsoever. And there is a technique for doing that because people get hung up on having to put wire in things and you really don't. So what we're going to do is rely on our humble wooden barbecue skewer, which is the felting tool everyone should have in their craft box. So the whole thing, apart from the ears, is made around this barbecue skewer, and that is what allows us to get this beautiful symmetry and beautiful shape. So that is what we are going to be working on. Now, I've used carded wool for this because I feel that that's best suited for this particular project, although you can use a coarse wool top as well, whatever you've got. And then the only other colour I've used is a white for accent, but you can feel free to choose whatever you want. A felting mat, I've got a hessian mat here, but it's because it's three-dimensional. You can use a foam mat, a wool mat, anything you like really, and always use a topper. I've got my trusty barbecue skewer, and then I'm using a 38 star felting needle because this is really robust. It's a good all-rounder, and you don't want to be using a fine needle because you will catch the wooden skewer, and using a fine needle you will find it will break or bend really, really easily. This is pretty much all you need for this project. If you want to use a multi-tool when you create the ears, fine, but for the rest of it, one needle works just as well. I think time to get on with it really. I'll see you in there. So we're starting off with these long lengths of brown carded wool. It's really nice and coarse. Don't start with a piece that's too thick. So if you've got quite a thick piece, then split it down the middle and start with a thinner piece. This is what we're going to use to wrap around the barbecue stick to get the body going. So you take your barbecue stick, and we're probably going to use about 2/3 of this stick to wrap around, but just start, find a place to start near the top. Keep your fingers close to the barbecue stick because you're using carded wool. It will pull away quite easily, so you need to keep it firm as you turn. And the trick really to this is to overlap as you work down the barbecue stick. Turn in your hand, keep the wool in your other hand, and then just felt a little bit with your needle as you go along. Just down the sides, really, make sure you're just going down the side of that stick so you're not damaging the needle. And then continue to twist and turn. I find the best way is to hold the stick and then hold the wool in my other hand and turn the stick, but find out which way works best for you. But keep it nice and tight all the way down and keep your fingers closed so it doesn't break off. And then work your way back up and just felt into place until it holds nice and firmly. And then go back down again. So what you're doing is you're really building up this body shape, and you're going to start focusing on expanding and building the base because it's going to be a cone shape. So what we want to do is get a nice wide base, and then it narrows nice and neatly towards the top. But we can do the reshaping as it gets bigger. Keep working, keep felting, and now you're not worried about damaging the needle because it's got thicker, and flatten that base. So felt straight into the base to get it nice and flat. Keep checking the shape. Keep felting, and then just work on building it up. Especially focus on that bottom area because you really want to see quite a defined shape. And then you can use your size guide if you've got the kit. But if not, then just do it by eye and whatever you're happy with. It's kind of like a Christmas tree shape. And this carded wool really felt well together. It's nice and coarse, and then there's a few lines in it now, but we'll get rid of those once we've built this shape up and taken it off the skewer. Now start to firm everything up. You're still going quite deep into that, into the actual shape itself, because you want to make sure that everything in the center is firm as well. You don't want it squishy and falling apart. And it's not, the shape's not quite right yet, but what we'll do is we'll work diagonally with our needle. I'm just going to add a little bit more here because it needs building up. And also you've got to make sure that you've got enough for the head to sit on. So you want the neck to be nice and strong and sturdy, but don't over felt the neck. Keep it kind of loose because you want to be able to felt the head onto it. And if you've really felted that neck firmly, then you're going to find that a little bit more difficult. But notice how I am now using my needle diagonally, because that is now working the top area, and you know, we will build up those legs later on. But let's just work on this shape, get it nice and smooth, nice and even, and perfect scaffolding really to add everything to. Just check, make sure it's still slightly loose at the top. And then I've felted that more. I've given it a really nice smooth finish. Quite happy with that now. So I'm going to start working on the head. And we do the head exactly the same way, but obviously much, much smaller. I've split the wool in two again down the length because I don't want it too thick. Use your thumb and your finger to keep that wool in place because you don't want the head getting too long. You're really focusing in one area. It's probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. And then just really start to build that up. Felt it in, work those ends. You're going for a nice curved rounded shape and they want to be really firm. And this is such a great way of creating a head shape. It really makes the job a lot easier, and you can use this for so many different projects, whatever animal you're making, whether it's foxes, hares, sheep. This is a really great technique for creating the base for a head shape. And use your template if you've got it. If not, make sure it's in proportion to the body that you've just created. And you can take it off and then work on the shape a little more as well. But make sure you firm it as much as you possibly can whilst it's actually on the stick. You're going in diagonally now. And decide which is going to be the back of the head, because the back of the head's going to be flatter. So you're going to have a more sort of pointy rounded end where the nose is going to be. And that will probably just happen naturally, as you can see here. But it doesn't want to be flat like a pancake. You know, you need to go in diagonally and then just soften those edges at the back so you've got those nice curves. And keep working it until you're really, really happy with that shape. I've flattened it a little bit much there, so I'm just adding some more wool, and that's the trick. You can always add more, but never start with too much. I just felt it needed building up a little bit more, and as you can see, that's taking a much better shape now. You can really see how that's going to sit on the body, and it's much more curved at the back. So again, most things can be rectified when you're needle felting, but the trick is not to start with too much. And then just really finish that shaping, keep working it. And you're going diagonally now. Now you're just working that top layer, you're smoothing it. Your hands are great tools as well. Use your hands to roll it to get a nice smooth finish. And then check the ends, make sure there's no soft areas. And here I'm just filling in that little hole where the barbecue skewer was. You don't need to, but just sort of teasing the wool over that hole where it was, just so it's not visible. And then do the same for the nose as well, because everything's exposed on this project, so you want perfection on the surface, and that's what it is all about. It's a simple enough project, but the trick is getting those surfaces nice and shaped. Make sure that they are smooth and even and symmetrical, and that is why using the barbecue skewer is so brilliant. You'll see, especially when we do the legs, what a difference they make, and you don't need any wires at all. So I'm just continuing to work this shape a little more. And check, you know, it should be firm, but it should spring back. It shouldn't be over felted. I'm not too concerned about that because we're not adding much detail. It's very simple in its detail, this, which is what makes it so lovely. It gives it that sort of whimsical folk sort of feel, especially with that ruffle. And then, again, if you've got your template or your body there, just check. And then the top of that neck is still quite loose, which is what we want because it enables us to felt the head and the body together because we've still got some nice loose wool there. And that is it for the head and the body. This is the second part of the parsley hair needle felting tutorial. We've already completed the body in part 1. So what we're going to focus on now is creating these legs and getting some really nice symmetry, really nice shape, and these creating these lovely feet at the end. And this is so much easier when we do it on this wooden stick, which is just a barbecue skewer. So going back to where we were using the a carded wool. You may be using the brown Shetland carded wool from the kit, or if not, just any carded wool you've got lying around at home. It doesn't really matter. And this, if you are working from a template, this is the section that we're working on now, which is the legs. But again, you don't need the template, you don't need the kit. Just a nice length of carded wool in whatever colour you want to use, really. So again, as I said before, this is quite thick. So what we did for the body was we split it straight down the middle, like so that we didn't have a whole load of bulk to be working with, so we could get that nice shape, that cone shape that we created there. Now with the legs, we want them really flat and really sort of symmetrical and really quite slim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it again. You don't have to do this. If the it depends how thick the carded wool is, but mine's quite thick. So I am going to split it again. And again, we do the same as we did for the body. We get hold of our carded wool, and you can see how that's going to pull apart quite easily, so you need to hold it quite close to the stick, working from the top where the point is. And we're going to make the legs shorter than the finished leg because we're going to roll them to smooth them out, which will lengthen it. So but don't worry too much about that. You can cut them if they're too long, that's absolutely fine as well, so don't worry about that. Let's just really focus on the shape. So start to wrap around the barbecue skewer, much the same way as we did with the body and the head. Keep those fingers close to that skewer. You don't want this to become loose and unruly, and also you don't want it to break. Just felt gently along those edges again. Make sure that you're careful with that needle to avoid breaking it. And what we're aiming for is these really nice, slim, firm legs. This is the one that I've done previously here. Continue to felt, keep that wool flat as you turn. Don't let it twist because you don't want any lumps and bumps in this. Keep it tight. And then we're now going to work on the foot area. So what I've done here is I've actually made the foot end bigger because we really want to have a nice sort of chunky foot for this hair. So really shape that. You want a nice, soft, round edge. And really, you probably only need to wrap 2 or 3 times for the entire leg itself and then work more on the foot. And then once you're happy with the thickness, just really felt it nice and firmly until you're happy with it. But leave the top loose because the top part will be attached to the body, and that's quite important that you leave that loose. So you're working back down. I'm pretty happy with what I've got there. I'm just going to tidy up the foot. I really want to work on that shape now. Make sure that's nice and firm because we don't want it floppy. That's why we don't need any wires, because we're really getting this nice and firm. But we will also smooth it up with our hands as well. So diagonally work down that leg, keep that top end loose, make sure that you're really focusing on firming it up and keeping that shape. And then, as you can see, I've used a template there, but also compare it to the leg that you've made previously. Don't worry about the legs being too long though, because They can be cut if needs be, and I'll show you how to do that if I feel that they are too long. Then you take it off the skewer, really continue to felt, make sure you're using that topper, and you know, really work on getting a nice firm shape. Now we're going to lengthen it now. That's why I said don't have it too long on the skewer, because when we really firm it and smooth it with our hands, look at the difference it makes, and it also lengthens that leg. So pushing where the foot is really firmly so that you create that lovely paw for the hare, and then make sure legs are about the same size, which I'm happy with. Happy with that. Just going to shape this foot a little bit more. Just, you know, making sure it's nice and round at the end. It's nice and chunky, so that it actually looks different to the length of the leg. You know, you really want a noticeable difference there. And because they're really firm, we don't need wires. When we bend them to create the paw shape, that we'll do that when we attach everything in the final video, when we put everything together. Because it's so firm, it will just bend and hold naturally. Just really firm up where the foot finishes. I'm just going to add a little bit more wool here because I think it's slightly smaller than the other foot. So just pop on a little bit of wool. Remember in the previous tutorial, I said it doesn't matter, you can add wool, just don't add too much to start with. You can always build it up and make it bigger. And that's the key with most needle felting projects. Not all, but the majority of needle felting projects, rule of thumb is start with less, add more if you need it, and then just really work on those shapes. So they're looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. So really, just checking now as well where these feet are going to sit on the side of the body. We're going to make the side legs now. So exactly the same as we did with the front legs, except smaller. It's as simple as that. So do exactly the same, and you're probably aiming for about 1/3 of the size. Again, keeping those ends nice and loose because they're going to be attached. And we don't have to worry too much about how those ends look because they are going to be covered up. We're going to be covering those in wool when we build up those haunches. So, you know, it's quite a quick process, this. Again, you're repeating what you did for the front legs. You make a leg for the side and then you make another to match. It's that simple, but just keep that end loose. Take it off. Make sure that the center is really firm. You don't want any floppy bits. The key to this is making sure that it is really firm right the way through that leg. That's why we don't need any wire. I don't use wire a lot, to be honest. You're only for sort of imposing something or I want some stability. And then just pop a little bit more on, as I did with the front leg. Make sure that that paw is nice and chunky and looks completely different to the rest of the leg. And that shape, as you can see now, is almost there. Just tucking in some ends, making sure the ends are really firm and there's no fuzzy bits. Want it nice and smooth, and that's the whole idea of this project, is having everything really nice and smooth. So, front legs, a bit long. So as you can see, I've trimmed them here, and then I've just pulled that loose wool, and there you go. You can see it's going to sit quite nicely on the body, and make sure that both legs are of equal length and that the wool is loose at the end. That's the important thing. Part 3, we are going to make the ears. So we have done in part 1, we've done the body, we've got the head, then in part 2 we've created those legs. So now onto the ears. Again, using exactly the same colour carded wool that you have used throughout the whole project. And I just need to say here as well, you can use wool top for this. Just make sure you use a nice coarse wool top, makes it a lot easier. You can use a coarse wool top for the whole project, but I really love this carded wool for this. So what you need to do is take a small length of carded wool. So that is approximately, let's have a look. That's about 15 centimeters long. So you need 2 pieces about the same size. So if you've got a thick piece of carded wool, split it in half down the middle so that it's thinned out. Then all you want to do is fold that in half. And then what you can also do is just twizzle those ends just to mat them together. And as you can see, before we've even done anything, we've started to create a shape. So what I would suggest you do is then draw a line with your needle around the ear, because what we're going to do is we're going to fold in those sides around the line to make a really neat edge. And you're aiming for a petal sort of teardroppy shape. So just work around the sides of the ear. You can see how I've created that line already. And then pull in those edges up to the line. You will find that it just stops naturally. Use your needle. You can either use your fingers or you can use your needle to pull in those edges. And can you see how we're bringing that in? We're reducing the size and we're aiming for that really nice, neat shape. So I'm speeding this up now. Obviously, you know, we're doing much of the same for the next few minutes, but the reason we do that outline around the ear to start with is not only does it make it easy to create the shape, but it allows us to pull those edges over so we have a really nice, soft line to the outer side of our ears. It makes all the difference. So what you do is you draw the line and then you pull those sides over. Now, to speed up the process, what I like to do is use a multi-tool. And you'll need either a Hessian mat or a wool mat to do this if you're using this punch tool, because this has got 7 needles in it. So you can take as many needles in and out as you like. I think I've left the 7 needles in this one. But what this does is it just speeds up the process. It makes it super fast, but it also gives a really nice finish. I've got a multi-tool here with 3 needles in as well, which is also a great tool to have. But keep turning and keep felting. You want this ear really nice and firm, and keep bringing in those edges. And if when you've made the first ear, use that as your guide. That is your guide to size, because you want them as equal and as similar in size as possible. Keep turning, keep felting, and the more it's felted, you'll notice it barely hanging on to that felting mat underneath. And that's what you're aiming for. With these ears, they need to be really flat. I've got this little holder here, so if you're worried about pricking your fingers and getting those neat edges, you can use that. But a piece of cardboard works just as well. So fold up a bit of cardboard, pop your ear or whatever it is you're working on inside there. It will protect your fingers and allow you to create shape and really firm and neaten up those edges. It's a great little gadget to have, and you can use it for all sorts of projects. I've seen people using perspex as well, sort of that really thin perspex so you can see through it. So I've got to the point now where it's really nicely felted, and I just kind of want to create some shape, which is what I'm doing. So I'm shaping, I'm holding on to that end, we're keeping that end loose, because that is the part that is going to be attached to the back of the head. So continue to turn and felt, keep comparing it to the other ear, and what you can do as well is you can change the shape. You know, when it's really sort of starting to firm up, you can change that shape with your fingers. Your hands are great tools. Just be careful to keep those fingers apart when you do this, so that you're not pricking your fingers. So that's looking really good. I'm really happy with how that is coming on now, and they're pretty much the same. When you put them together, there's very little difference. So pretty happy with that. Few final touches before we add a little bit of detail. And I am going to use some white carded wool for the detail in the ears. I mean, sort of less is more really. And I'm using the carded wool because you can get those really fine wispy details. that look sort of barely there, and you can pull them on, pull them off, add a little bit here, and you don't get lines like you do if you're using, say, a wool top for this kind of detail. So I like to use the carded wool. So they don't have to be the same. Don't worry about placement. If you want to add some dark in for highlight, then you can do, feel free to add whatever you like and whatever works for you. I've got a bit of sort of dark Jacob carded wool there. And there you go. A couple of ears there, looking super smart and ready to go on to the back of the head. So at this moment, we've created all the body parts, we've got them already here, so we're now going to focus on the assembly. This is clearly the most exciting part, because all that hard work that you've done prior to this is now going to come to fruition. And my top tip when we're doing this is take your time. You really want to sort of enjoy the process. It's really relaxing, but really take your time, because what we want to do is create these really beautiful sort of seamless finishes. And if you just sort of take a breath, take your time and really focus on what you're doing, you will easily achieve that. So let's get going. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to pop the head onto the body. And what I'm first going to do is, remember in the previous videos, we left this sort of top area, which is the neck end, we left it quite loose. And the reason we do that is because we want to just sort of pull that wool apart so that we can attach it to the head much more easily. You see there? So we just sort of pull that apart like so. And then what we're going to do, easiest way is to sit the actual body on top of the head. You see what, I'm just trying to get the right angle there for you. That's it. So we're quite close to the back, because what we're going to do is when we put the ears on, this is going to extend a little bit. So we're quite close to the back. So pop the body on top of the head, like so. And I'll try and get a decent angle. Here we go. And then just that loose wool, just start to felt that into the base of the head. Don't worry about position at the moment, just roughly near the back, because we can move it around. Turn it around and continue, and bring your hands further down if you want, to felt that loose wool in to the base of the head. And you're just sort of going down the side, working around, keep turning it, and you can see already that's starting to hold. I'll just do it at this angle here so you can see. So what we're doing is we are working this wool into the head. So this is the loose wool that was at the top of the body to work into the head. And it wants to be firmly attached, but before we get it really firm, we're just going to make sure we're happy with the position. So we'll just get all that loose wool felted in, and you see how that's already quite firm. And let's have a look where we are. Yep, I think that's just about right. So carry on working that, and don't worry too much about the keep it as tidy as you can, but don't worry too much about that, because if you're putting the ruffle on, you're not going to actually see where the head and the neck join. So here we are, we're narrowing that neck a little bit, really pushing that through, and we want to push that needle quite deep, because what we want to do is drag the wool from the body into the head so that the two wools are meshing together. When two become one. What song was that? Must have been Spice Girls. Must have been Spice Girls. Yes, it was. It's in my head now. Ugh. I actually quite like that song. we go. So that's felting on nicely, and you don't really need to do much more than that. Just make sure it's nice and firm. You can give it a good shake and it's not going to go anywhere. And then we've still got the head visible at the back here, so you don't want the body right at the back. You want it about 2/3 of the way back. And there we go, that bit is done. So just check position again, see how that neck's sitting. I'm just going to felt some more through there, just felt a little bit loose. Now I'm going into a diagonal angle, keeping it nice and tidy, just working it round. And there we go. Nice and firm. And if that head's, I maybe should have positioned it slightly differently at the front, but you can actually use your fingers just to squish in any lumps that you've created. That's where the head needs to be firm, because we handle it a lot, but you can always just go around and tidy it up like that. Okay, so there we go, there's the head and the body ready for the legs. So we're going to do the front legs first. Let's have a look at these. Now, as you can see, let's have a look. We're going to bend those feet up, and that's just about the right length. So one leg is slightly shorter than the other, so when I've trimmed it, made it a bit short, that's okay. It's also a little bit thicker. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to pull gently on that until they are the same length roughly. That's better. Okay, and can you see here we've pulled apart this loose wool here, so that's when we join it, it's a really nice neat join. But a tip to start with is put the legs together, turn them on their side, and then just felt through the both of them just a few times, just so the legs stay together. Make sure that the feet are evenly distanced, or the same distance as each other, should I say. Doesn't matter if the top is a bit uneven, just make sure the feet are the same positions. So can you see I've just gently attached those legs there, just so when we put them on it just makes it a bit easier. And then I'm just going to come down here and I'm just going to do the same in one or two more spots, so our legs are nicely together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bend the foot over and we're going to push through that bend with the needle. And can you see how that holds it in position? And we're going to bend the other foot, bend it right back, and just push that needle quite firmly a few times through the bend. Don't need to overdo it. And there we go. You can see how we've got our lovely feet now, and we'll actually splay them out when we're done. So that will make it a lot easier for attaching. And then what we want to do is make sure where we attach, we've got the base, where that bend is, that's where the base of our legs want to sit. And hold it there. Make sure you've got it in the middle. And then just this loose wool, just start to felt that on. I'm not bothered about where they are, they're going to wobble about a lot. I just want to get that wool on so it's in the right position. There you go. That's it, so you can see. And can you see already, because we've had that loose wool, how that's really nicely going to just sort of flow into the neck area and be really seamless. So you won't have you won't have the neck and then a big sort of lump where the legs are joined. Now here, this is where we're going diagonally. See how that's joined together really nicely. and just keep working it. And what we can do is we can use the needle as well to thin out the wool and make it even more seamless as we go along. So then we're just going to just go down the legs, hold them together. We don't want them to sort of flatten and distort, so hold them together. Be very careful of your fingers and just push through in one spot, backwards and forwards into the body, just so that those legs hold a bit further down, and then just tease over the little hole that you've made, and then use your fingers just to neaten out any indentations, and then just continue diagonally to felt that, and those legs have now become part of the chest, so part of the chest and up into the neck. And that is how you get those really nice seamless joins, because you've created some loose wool at the top. So what's happened is it's thinner here and then it's tapered and got thicker as it's gone down, so it looks really as if it's part of the body. And it's important with this because we're not really covering anything up, whereas a lot of my other tutorials, the hares, foxes, etc., they'll have, you know, a really nice layer of wool covering this, so it doesn't really matter. But with this, there's not really many places to hide as far as joining it all together. But just take your time. Might take you an hour to do this, might take you 40 minutes, might take you 3 hours. It really doesn't matter. Just breathe, take a deep breath, and really enjoy the process. It's quite therapeutic actually, because it's not difficult, but you do have to focus and you do have to concentrate and think about what you're doing, and just keep picking it up and having a look at it. The legs are a little bit off there, so just use your fingers just to tidy anything up, and then come to the base, push the feet up against the body there. You can use your hand to bend them if you wish, just so that those feet stay sticking up. And there we go. So we're just going to leave them like that for now, just roughly in position, because when we've finished at the end we'll go over the whole thing again, and then we will start working on the back legs and the haunches, and this is the bit where we really are going to create a really lovely shape. So can you see where we're at here? Got these really nice haunches at the side, but again seamless, and we haven't got any big lumps and bumps at the back. So we'll start on that next. So our back legs are here. They're about the same size. Just pull that one a little bit. Doesn't really matter with these because you can position them wherever you want, because they're not, none of this, the only real bit that's going to be seen is the actual foot itself. All this will be covered up, so don't be precious about where it sits. And we don't have to worry about having a nice flat seamless finish here. Again, it's all going to be covered up. So they want to sort of be equidistant to, is it equidistant or equidistant? Equidistant to the front feet. And as you see, I've made them slightly thicker on the previous video tutorials, because I quite like that style of those really big paws. So I'm just going to loosen that wool, and I'm going to check where that is there. Just felt that in. There we go. And it wants to be flush with the base of the hair as well. Just helps it balance. I don't put a tail on this one, but you can you know, put whatever you want on. There we go. And then same with the other one. That will do for now. I think we can sort that out a little bit later. And then I'm just going to really sort of just jab at this for a very short while, just to make sure that that's really, really firm. We're ready for our haunches. So scraps of wool for this, any bits you've got, same colour that we've been using. Don't be precious when you start, so take, you know, a nice chunk and just sort of fold it like a little blanket into a little sort of pad and pop it on over the top of the leg there and felt it in, and bring it right to the base of the body and slightly underneath as well. So we're just going to get this on. We will tidy this up, but we're just going to get this on to start with. And going diagonally as well, you can actually start to work that shape. So we'll do this bit quite firm, and then the layers that we put on top after this, we won't felt as much because we'll keep it quite sort of airy, because we don't want to flatten it completely. You know, we want to create that nice shape. I'll just show you from the top. So can you see how that is now starting? See how flat it is there, and then turn it. That's starting to build up. Okay. There we go. So I think it's time to add a little bit more. Again, pad of wool, but this time not quite so big, and we're going to focus more in the centre. You see how that's building up, and you see there's lots of needle marks there, but don't worry about that. We will be covering this final layer up with a sort of wisp of wool over the top, which will be hardly felted. Can we see now how that's starting to build up? And then work diagonally, so that we're now starting to get that nice seamless finish. Pop another little bit of padding on top. Fold it, pop it on. Now, not so much felting, just a little bit more gently. We're just going to hold it on, and you see where we're working into these legs here. Just sort of drag the wool down to the legs and around with the needle, so that we can't see. It's like an invisible join. So you want this quite soft now, because we're looking towards the top coat, so we want a nice finish. Make sure the bottom's nice and flat still though. Can we see here? Oh, we've got this nice join here. I've just got a little bit of a bulge at the side of the body there. Just going to tidy that up. So again, diagonals. Again, we've not created any bulk at the back there. We're just building up these sides really nicely. See from the base. There's this bit here, and if you want to make it a bit fatter, you can do with your fingers. Just for a really nice finish, we're just going to lay some really sort of thin wisps over the top. This is where you get to use all the bits that are sort of left from previously, and then you're going to felt those around and underneath, and try and avoid the top area as much as you can. Just some really light diagonal touches. Use the needle to pull those wisps around the foot, and then can you see how we're going up the body here, and this is how we get those really nice sort of melting into one piece seamless finish, so that you can't see where one part starts and the other finishes. I'm doing this and I can feel my heart rate slowed down. I feel really relaxed. It shouldn't be stressful. There's nothing that can't be fixed. If it goes wrong, you can fix it. You can pull it off if it's not over felted, or you can just add some more wool and felt it a bit flatter. But I think that is almost there. And what you can do as well is you can use your fingers just to sort of drag that wool. Let's have a look here. That's looking really good. Let's just really go in at a diagonal here. Can you see what I'm doing there? Just really working that wool into a nice shape. And that is one side done. And all you've got to do now is the other side. But can you see how lovely that shape is? You see, really nice clean seams. And then here at the back we've got to put the other side on, which will come over anyway. Just tease that wool over with your needle or your fingers, and it just smooths it all out. So we're back and I have finished both sides now. They are pretty much the same. I mean, I could go on, it's taken me about a good 30 minutes to do that, but I could go on all day, backwards and forwards, but you'll never get perfect symmetry. But I'm pleased. I'm happy with that. So just so that we can get these feet to flick out, where that foot is joined to the body there, just go in at a diagonal angle just to secure it. And can you see, if you just push in at the side through the foot, you'll see that actually starts to flick out. So we're going in here and we're just felting through a few times, and that will naturally start to flick out. And our feet there, quite happy with that. Just going to pop those down. Now if these are not holding, it would be because we've really felted quite well. So all you can do is, if you want to pin them down, is just pop a little bit of fresh wool just there and just felt through, and then that will hold. But don't overdo it, because you don't want to flatten those legs. And then any wool that's just poking out at the side, you can just tuck in. So there we go. Pleased with that. And then just here, although that seems really neat, we can improve that. Again, same wool as we did with the haunches. Just take a thin wisp of wool, the raw edges across the top of the legs here and up towards the neck, and then just very gently take that right up to the neck, just until it holds. And can you see the seams have disappeared completely? And then if you just want to just separate those legs there, you can just pop the needle in and you get that nice line taking that up. So that's the legs, both sets of legs on. I popped the eyes on as well while Stu were doing the legs, because I do have a separate video for sewing on the eyes, so I won't do that on this one. I'll just pop the link below. We are now ready for the ears. You prepared your ears before, so here we go. There they are. What we want to do is same as we did with the legs. So fold it in half, pop it on its side, and then just felt that until it holds. Same with the other ear, on its side, just at the end where that loose wool is, just a few pokes with the needle until it holds, and then lay them both together on their side and felt that loose wool together so that they just hold when you put them on, and they're going to be together. It's much easier to put them on that way than putting them on separately. I'm just going to felt that a little bit more just so that they don't come apart whilst I'm doing it. There we go. So you can see, just slightly felted onto the back of the head. So remember we talked before about how it might be a little bit flat? Well, as soon as we put those ears on, that will change. So you pop your ears on there, fold them over, so you've got this loose bit sticking out, and just carefully, because what you don't want to do is poke through your head, the head into your hand. Just get it on just so it holds. We'll work on repositioning. I usually have to take them off like I am now and put them on again, so they weren't quite low enough. So I've just brought them a bit further back. We're going to be wobbling around a little bit there, so I just move them, and you can do that as long as you haven't over felted. It's quite easy to do that. That's looking better. We'll get those firmed up. As you can see, you've got that loose wool there now, felted in, so just fold them over and then just come back up and just work up to the base of the ears. We want them nice and firm because we want them to stick up, and they will hold on their own very easily, but you need to make sure that they are felted firmly at the base for them to do that. And you'll be a bit gung-ho with it. I've made some indentations and made it a bit lumpy, but we'll pop some nice fresh wool on that just to sort that out. So I'm still a little bit loose here, so I'm just going to go in through the sides just so that they hold better, and then again I'm going to felt them a little bit further up even more so that they're sitting more on the top of the head. And you just keep working this until you're happy with them. That's better. So now they are actually holding really nicely, and you can felt one down, both up, both down. You could even have them pinned back and have it moon gazing if you wanted, and then you can finish the sort of final shaping. So just push into there. They want to be separate, you know, they want to be a bit of a gap in between them. And see where we narrowed them off earlier when we were shaping them. So they look pretty good. Yeah, pleased with that. Happy with that for sure. And then before we put the ruffle on, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, we've got a lot of brown here, so I just kind of want to break it up a little bit, as I have done on here, and also on the face, and give it a bit more character. And I might pop a bit more wool on the back of that head. In fact, I'll do that first. So if the head's still a bit flat at the back, make a little pad of wool like you did with the haunches, and just pop it on, and felt that around and under the head and into the neck, because remember, we're not going to see that. So that's a little bit better, a bit more shape at the back there. So you can change anything, improve it, make it bigger, reduce it by felting more, and just use your needle to smooth that over. Now to break up this brown. So with this carded wool, as I said before, it's great because you can almost make it like a cobweb. It's, you know, it's so fine, you can spread it out. And I'm just going to lay some really sort of small, barely there touches. It's just sort of highlights. You can see how it just breaks it up a little bit. Just reshape those legs. So it just breaks up the wool. And then I'm going to do the same on the face, but I'm going to take a bit of white. So I've got white on this one, but I've also got a little bit of this light just to break it up, and then just pop that kind of over the nose and pull it, and you almost just pop it on with your hand. Very gentle diagonal touches with the needle, and if it doesn't look right you can just pull it off. And we are ready just for the ruffle, so I'll quickly show you how we do that really easily. I have one here. So what I've done is, on the ruffle, any bit of lace will do. This is if you have the kit, this will be in your kit, and I've just done a running stitch all the way through. So I've secured it at one end, just tied a knot with the white thread at one end, done a running stitch so that when I do this, get hold of that, I can just pull this down. See what's going on there? Forward, just pull that down, and there we go. So we've created a nice ruffle with this lace, and then we pop that. It's a bit fiddly, but you want to get it right, so make sure it's all going the right way, and then go to the back, pull it tight because you want it nice and tight around the neck, and we'll tidy it up in a moment. And just a couple of stitches just to secure that at the back. But there we go. There is parsley hair, beautifully assembled. So I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it, and looking forward to the next one. So thanks for joining me, and don't forget to send in your fabulous photographs.